Hey everyone, welcome to the next in our Brim film screening series. I'm Kutter Callaway, and for those of you who have seen Mass, Fran Kranz's newest film, you know how moving and how urgent and necessary this film is. For those of you who have not seen it, I'd highly recommend it. It is a timely film. It is a gripping film. It's deeply emotional. And it's one of those that stays with you for quite some time after viewing it. I had the pleasure and the delight to interview Fran and also Dowd, who plays Linda. And I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. Well, Fran and Anne, thank you so much for joining us. And before we say anything else, I just want to say thank you so much for this film. I don't even know if film is the right word for it, but this experience, this encounter, I really appreciate the artistry, the intent, and most of all, just the time you're taking to spend with us today.
Thank you. That's
very
sweet.
welcome.
That's so sweet. Thank you. I appreciate it. It means a lot.
So I'm going to go. I could softball this for you, but you gave us a film that is not a softball. So I'm going to start with not a softball question. And I think, and this could be for both of you, actually. The question, I think, turns on what this thing is that you've given us. Is this a fable in like the best sense of the word, or is this like a realist drama? And my question is basically, in the terms that your movie sets forth, is forgiveness an actually real possibility, or is it this ideal that we can sort of aim toward but never fully realize?
Wow. Gosh, that's awesome. I think I was trying to make a realist drama and probably ended up with a lot of fable without realizing it.
What do you mean by fable, honey? A lesson thingy? No?
Or what did you say? Parable or fable?
Yeah, fable or parable. Yeah.
Well, that there's so much, I think, there's a universality to it, or there are bigger themes to draw out of it when my focus was on presenting one of these meetings as truthfully as I possibly could and unadorned. I didn't want the conveniences, traditional conveniences of film. I didn't want a score. I didn't want to leave the room. I didn't want flashbacks. I didn't want inserts. I wanted the characters to enter the room, and I wanted us to be stuck with them until they leave. And I wanted to sort of respect that, because I respected and had such sort of admiration and awe for just the very fact that these meetings happen at all, under all kinds of circumstances, not just in the wake of shootings between parents, but I read about the Forgiveness Project. I read about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa. I just am so in awe of these things, because truthfully, I don't know if I could participate in one. Then that scares me. And I struggle with that. How capable am I of forgiveness? And how would I heal? How would I move forward? So it was this sort of exercise, personal exercise myself, and sort of exploring and digging through this and placing myself in the four characters' shoes. And I think sometimes I can step back and think, oh, maybe this is sort of a metaphor for today in our divided country. Maybe this is about a lot of things. There's such a spiritual component to it. Maybe it's just about the search for meaning in general in life. Finding, understanding just anything in life. so yeah, but my focus, the focus as filmmaker was keeping this grounded in reality and never getting in the way as a director.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. It wasn't a setup to say it was a fable. I bought it. And as I was thinking through it, and Anne, maybe you can speak to this a bit. As the way you sort of thought about Linda and what your role is in particular, because as you're writing the script and then as you're kind of acting out this meeting, it seems that you had to set up certain conditions, that this sort of moment, the climactic moment we get to, didn't just happen willy-nilly, but you had to be really intentional about setting up a certain set of underlying conditions that allowed for this to emerge and allowed us as an audience to get to that point and go, yeah, that's right. That rings true to the story, to life, etc. And did you think about that, of how your character in particular was part of setting those conditions to get to that point?
What do you mean by setting conditions?
Well, I guess that's my question. As I looked at your character, I thought in this, to make this moment possible, where these two families have some moment of forgiveness, you in particular played a very interesting role in how you reacted to the other family. You reacted to your spouse. And I can imagine being in a room like that where the person in your situation does not react that way. And so both the question is, what were you doing as a human to set up a possibility of forgiveness, and then also as an actor in that role?
I place no restrictions or structure on her or the experience, because Fran did that for us in the writing and in the way this was set up to shoot. One of the things I learned from her is her awareness. Place no restrictions, have no expectation. Stay present in the room with the truth. There's nothing to defend here, because how could you? And no expectation of forgiveness, because no. Whatever she can bring to the situation, however it lands, stay with the truth. And so that to me means no restriction, no plan, no thinking ahead. No, if I do it this way, I play it that way. The profound instinct was take your hands off the controls here, and the wish to guide. She will guide you. Don't worry.
And did you all stick pretty closely to the script, or did you get
There was no desire to change anything once to change anything. When a script is written this way, you want to say the words as written.
Mm-hmm. We had a suite of you. We did have a 2.5 day rehearsal.
Pardon me.
In New York, and it was about 3 weeks before we went to Idaho to shoot. And I'm an actor. I believe in the importance of actors. I love actors. I'd sort of learned along the way working with good directors that the more you ask about the actor, the more you're going to get out of the play. The more because they're the ones taking the emotional journey. Sorry, I say play or script. But they take the emotional journey. So if they're ever faking it or missing something or no longer engaged, even just no longer being engaged, if they're just sitting waiting for their next line, something's wrong. There's something wrong with the script. And so we had this short rehearsal where essentially we did table work and just dissected the screenplay to make sure everyone knew where they were going, what information they had, and what needed to be changed, we changed. I went home and did rewrites. And if there was a moment where Linda and Richard are talking about the day, how from their perspective, what happened on the day of the event. Jason Isaacs playing Jay looks at me and says, "Why? I don't want to listen to this. Why am I listening to this?" And the instinct was so honest that it was put into the script right then and there. That was a rewrite. Well, you would, yes. Well, then if that's how you feel, let's say it. So I just wanted to make sure the words were there to carry them on this emotional journey. That all the pieces were in place, because they're better actors than I am. I'm not going to sit there and tell them how to be emotional. But there was never a discussion of that. It was just let me do my job to make sure they can be carried there, so to speak. Yeah. While I wouldn't say there was a lot of improv, they were co-authors. I really believe that.
No, darling. There were only a few things that needed, very few, very few.
Well, it did. I mean, one question I had for you was it a stage play first in your mind? Because it definitely had that feel in the best sense of it, right? But what it didn't feel like was a stage play that was translated into a film. So that's what I think was really successful in capturing the best of that, but then also making it cinematic.
That's great. I mean, that's cool. I wanted to make a movie. The first drafts were screenplays, and I just thought, what, this would probably be a play. This might need to be a play. It was at that point just in the parish hall, even the beginning with the supporting characters. It was all there. And so I did go that route. I do think, it spent several months as a play, and then I went back to a screenplay because that's where my heart was. And I also believed you needed cinematically, you could only capture all the layers and the internal moments and the secrets and the private exchanges between the partners. You could only do that, I thought, through camera lens. But I think the time it spent as a play allowed for the conversation to sort of be what it was, you know, and treating it as a four-hander, I guess, and that I had four leads. You know, there was no good and bad guy. There was no protagonist, antagonist. I had four human beings, and I wanted to plead their case as best as I could, as truthfully as I could. And I think a lot of that work came as it was a play. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, stage in the DNA of the film. You know, I think for the better.
So speaking of the setting, so it's an Episcopal church. Not unintentional. I'm thinking back to that. What are the conditions that are necessary for this? Was it always a church? What if it wasn't? Is it the same story or no?
It was always a church, but you know, I'm going to have to answer for that for forever. It feels like people brought it up, you know, and I thought something would be lost if it was in a home. I read about a meeting that took place in a home. I thought something would be lost if it was a community center. What these people are speaking about, the themes of the movie, are spiritual themes. I think forgiveness, reconciliation, life, death, meaning, just the search for meaning and understanding as a spiritual pursuit. You know, they're looking for very specific meaning, right, and specific understanding in their context, the context of the meaning, but sort of the pursuit of understanding the unknowable and the unimaginable is a spiritual thing. And I thought this has to take place in a spiritual place. And my background, I was raised Catholic. I no longer really go to church, but I like church. I like a good sermon. I do like going. When I do go, I appreciate the themes and the stories. So I'm not shy about the religious element of it. I want it to be in there, but it was much more familiarity of my own background to make it a church. But there was never any doubt in my mind it had to be in a holy place, like a house of worship. The spirituality is deeply intertwined with the essence and soul of the film.
It's also, sorry, excuse
please,
me.
go ahead.
It's a safe space, and it's in its way a neutral place. And I think we talked about it earlier today. The door to talking about these things has been opened there. It is a church. So somehow, and I know, did I say that wrong?
Yeah, no, that's it.
And you have said God adjacent. I love that. But I would also say God is always present. Spirituality is always present. However one experiences that in their lives. All the names are different, valid. But the presence is there. The idea, the challenge is, can we let it in? Can we let it take the lead? Because we all need some kind of grace to move to the next place. Despite our intentions, we need something else.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, especially with this, right? I mean, it's one thing if we're talking about other issues we may face in life, but something so traumatic, something so urgent as this, something so sort of cataclysmic. It is hard to imagine what resources we might draw upon to move forward, to forgive, to heal, all the things, Linda, your character, and I think some of the others say, like, I want to heal. I want to, I think, let me just give you like my quick sort of thoughts on that and tell me if this tracks with where the two of you were thinking with this film. So I love that it's set in a church and that there's explicit sort of like critique of it, right? Like you've got the crucifix there hanging over the whole goings on. You have the God with us banner and the sort of last shot. You have the end where they're singing, the choir's literally sort of hovering over them the whole time. But there's an estrangement as well, and I wonder, just in terms of like society as a whole, we're going through all these sort of cascading traumas. I mean, just today I saw another school shooting, and so it's just recurring. And one estrangement that I saw in the film is between, and exactly what you're describing, this longing for a religious past that used to be the resources that would help us navigate these. And we're disconnected from it, but still going, but we need them somehow, even if I don't believe in the same way. The other estrangement that I saw was between the church institution and basically humans. The awkwardness of the church staff, the inability or incapacity. It's like the only thing that we're any good at, and I say we as a member of a church, and the church is setting up tables, right? We've lost the ability to hold people's vulnerabilities and weakness. And I saw both of those estrangements sort of like playing off each other, and then kind of coming back. So I love that. Can we let it in? So it's not just here are these, secular people into a sacred place, but it's both the people that are there leading and cultivating the space also are estranged from that sacred space. Does that track with what you were doing in the film?
I mean, I love that. I mean, yes, in theory it does. I mean, I'm not sure I could articulate it much better. I do love that. I mean, I don't necessarily, it's funny. I love my supporting characters, and Brita Wool, who I think plays the role of Judy so beautifully, and Anthony, and gosh, it's funny. I'm not sure if I saw them necessarily as estranged from their own work. I really wanted people helping people. I wanted that notion, and I also believed if we just introduced the parents, I thought strangely we would not find the same empathy towards them if it was just a movie with 4 parents. That we needed to meet them through people closer to ourselves, meaning people that have not experienced unimaginable tragedy. Most of us haven't experienced something that cataclysmic, as you said so well. And I thought in order to sort of get there through those supporting characters, where we find ourselves in a place to be almost blindsided by the tragedy of these that these other people have experienced. I mean, look, I love everything you're saying. It's, I sometimes feel like I'm the worst person to talk about this movie, but it is intertwined, because I think I have a hard time understanding how life is anything but a spiritual experience, and what is sacrificed in an increasingly more secular society, and what a waste if we're just going to forget or dismiss or discard the themes and values and stories from the Bible. I don't see myself as a religious person, but we can't lose track of these things. And so there's this sort of effort that, yes, there's the humans doing work in the parish hall. You have these people doing their own work, but it's contained and it's held together by something spiritual.
I'm sorry, I'm cutting
just
you
rambling.
off.
I'm just rambling.
Somebody asked us today earlier, do you have any regrets? Was that a question? From in the experience of shooting and everything?
Oh.
And the one that came to mind for me is I regret not getting the phone number of the woman who did our makeup. And the reason is, and I'm thinking of your characters, the minor characters, the wonderful, unusual, could be considered outsiders, that sweet boy, because he moves through life differently. And where is he safe? Maybe here. And that lovely woman was challenged and was going through very hard times and was very vulnerable, but doing her utter best to get the makeup on our face and get through, and move us to the next place. And I thought, and that's, to me, speaks to the power of this film. Just lay it all down and see each other for who we are.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you can't get more simplistic than that. Please excuse me. But these are the thoughts that are coming to me of, oh, that sweet girl, I haven't thought about her in a long time.
It's probably a projection of my own failings as a pastor in those situations. I was a young adults pastor in Colorado when Columbine happened. And so feeling that sense of inadequacy, I think probably struck me more in this film than I've seen elsewhere. So I really appreciate both of your work here. It really is a deeply meaningful encounter. It's called Mass. It seemed actually like a Mass, and in it, the experience of it. A moment where we gather together in communion and just as you said, know one another on a deeper level. So thank you very much for the artistry and for the conversation.
Good luck
Thanks,
to you.
Kutter. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I love
Thank you.
that.